It started as a quiet morning in Istanbul. No one expected that a single interview would send shockwaves across the world. Demet Özdemir, who had avoided every question about Yaman for years, finally sat down in front of the cameras. Her tone was calm, her smile controlled, but her eyes betrayed her. They carried a weight, the kind that only comes from love mixed with pain. The host's question was simple: Demet, people still talk about you in Cannes. After all these years, do you want to set the record straight? For a moment, she didn't speak. The silence stretched, and even the host seemed unsure whether she would answer. Then Demet took a slow breath and said quietly, "Yes, it's time." The studio fell silent. The sound crew froze. Every camera zoomed in as she continued, "There are things people think they know, and things we chose not to say. But not everything that's silent is over." Her words were calm, yet every sentence cut deep. Within hours, clips of the interview flooded social media. Hashtags exploded, hashtag Demet speaks, hashtag Cannes and Demet truth, hashtag world in shock. Fans around the globe were stunned, not because she confirmed the rumors, but because of how much emotion her voice carried when she spoke his name. "Ken was someone who changed my life," she said, her voice trembling for the first time. "Not just as a co-star, but as a person." She paused, wiping away a tear she didn't expect to shed. People saw what happened on screen, but they didn't see what happened when the camera stopped. They didn't see how much we laughed, how much we fought, or how much we cared. Maybe that was our mistake, thinking that something that real could survive in a world that only believes in headlines. The host leaned forward, whispering, "So it was real?" Demet nodded, her voice breaking slightly. "Every part of it." At that exact moment, millions of fans watching from their phones, laptops, and TVs around the world froze. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the confirmation that years of rumors, glances, and hidden emotions weren't imagination. It was truth. Meanwhile, in Rome, Yaman was filming when his phone started buzzing non-stop. His assistant rushed over. "You need to see this," he said, holding up the screen. It was Demet, her face, her voice, her confession. Ken stared at it for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he simply whispered, "She finally said it." But behind that calm exterior, his heart was racing. He had waited years for her to speak, and now that she had, everything inside him stirred again, the love, the memories, the regret. The one truth they both avoided had now become impossible to hide. That night, as the world replayed her interview over and over, Demet sat alone in her apartment, scrolling through the storm she had unleashed. Tears welled in her eyes as she read the comments, some full of love, some of judgment. But she didn't regret it. For once, she had spoken from her heart. And somewhere across the sea, Ken sat by his window, staring into the night sky, thinking about the words he had never said, and the one woman who had just said them for both of them. By the next morning, the entire entertainment world was in chaos. Every headline screamed her name: Demet Özdemir confirms everything. The truth about Cannes and Demet finally revealed. Paparazzi crowded outside her home, journalists camped near her gate, and fans left flowers and letters at her door. The world had been waiting for years for this confession, and now that it had come, no one wanted to let it go. Meanwhile, in Rome, Yaman was sitting in silence in his dressing room. His team kept asking for a statement, urging him to speak up, to respond before the media twisted the story. But Ken didn't move. He just stared at his reflection in the mirror, his jaw tight, his eyes distant. His assistant, unsure what to do, whispered, "She didn't attack you, Ken. She didn't expose anything bad. She just told the truth." Ken's voice was low, almost a whisper. "I know. And that's what hurts the most." He leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment. Every word she had said in that interview played in his mind like a melody he could never forget. Not everything that's silent is over. That one sentence cut through him. Because she was right, what they had was never truly over. It had just been buried beneath pride, distance, and the noise of fame. Reporters in Italy surrounded him the moment he left the set. "Can? Have you seen Demet's interview? Did she tell the truth? Do you still love her?" He didn't reply. He kept walking, expression unreadable, but the cameras captured something the fans didn't miss, the shimmer of emotion in his eyes before he turned away. Back in Istanbul, Demet was struggling to handle the avalanche of reactions. Her phone didn't stop ringing, producers, friends, family, all calling with questions she didn't want to answer. "Demet, do you realize what you've started?" one of her friends asked, half worried, half amazed. "You just reopened the biggest story of your life." She sighed deeply. Maybe it was never closed. That night, she turned on the TV and saw her own face everywhere. Analysts dissected every line of her interview, debating whether it was a confession of love or a farewell. Some called it courage. Others said it was foolish. But none of them knew what it had cost her to say those words. She looked at an old photo of herself and Ken, one taken between takes, when they thought no one was watching. He had his arm around her, and they were laughing like children. "You used to make everything feel easy," she whispered to the picture, her voice trembling. "Why did we let it get so complicated?" Across the sea, Ken sat in his apartment, watching the same interview replay on TV. When Demet said, every part of it was real, he smiled faintly, eyes wet. Finally, he whispered, "Someone said it." He picked up his phone, opened her contact, and hovered over her name. His thumb trembled. He wanted to write something, anything, but he couldn't. Not yet. Instead, he opened Instagram and posted something unexpected, a single photo of the sea at sunset, with one line beneath it. "Some truths can't stay hidden forever." Within minutes, fans understood. The world went wild again. Comments flooded in, "It's about Demet. He still loves her. This is their story." And while everyone speculated, the two people at the center of it all said nothing. Not to the world, not to each other. Just silence, the same silence that had connected them for years, now louder than ever. That night, as she scrolled through the chaos online, Demet saw his post. Her lips parted slightly, and she whispered into the quiet of her living room, "I knew you'd answer that way." For the first time in years, she smiled, a small, tired, but honest smile. Because now, they both knew, it wasn't over. It had never been over. Days passed, but the tension didn't fade, it deepened. Every corner of the internet buzzed with theories, dissecting every gesture, every post, every word. It wasn't just a story anymore, it was a storm that connected two hearts an ocean apart. And yet, in the center of that storm, both Ken and Demet remained silent. But silence, when it comes to them, has never meant indifference. Demet spent her nights in her apartment, restless. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face from those old days, the smile, the look he gave her when the director said cut, the way he whispered jokes between takes just to make her laugh. But it wasn't just nostalgia. It was unfinished emotion. She had thought that speaking the truth would bring her peace, but instead, it woke up everything she had buried. On the other side of Europe, Ken found himself unable to focus on anything. Scripts lay open on his desk, unread. Messages from his manager piled up unanswered. He had always been in control, confident, charming, unstoppable. But now, he was distracted, fragile even. "You started something, Demet," he whispered to himself one night. "And maybe it's time I finish it." That same evening, fate decided to intervene. Both of them received a call from a major production company, different calls, same project. A new international drama series, to be shot in Greece. The producers wanted them as the lead couple. The chemistry they once shared on screen was still legendary. The director believed no one else could recreate that kind of connection. Demet hesitated. "You know what that would mean," she told her manager. "Working with him again?" Her manager nodded. "Yes, but it's a masterpiece." "And maybe," she stopped, glancing at Demet's expression. "Maybe it's what you both need." When Ken heard the same offer, he didn't answer immediately either. His agent smiled knowingly. "You're thinking about her, aren't you?" Ken didn't deny it. He simply said, "If she accepts, I'll do it." A few days later, Demet found herself staring at the contract on her table. She signed it slowly, her hand trembling slightly. "If this is fate," she whispered, "then let it happen." News broke instantly. Can Yaman and Demet Özdemir to reunite on screen after years? The world went wild. Fans celebrated, critics speculated, and social media exploded with excitement. But beneath the headlines, both of them knew it wasn't just a reunion for the cameras. It was a test, of hearts, of time, of truth. Their first day of filming arrived sooner than expected. When Demet walked onto the set, her breath caught. The last time she had seen him was through a screen. Now he was right there, real, standing only a few meters away, looking exactly the same but somehow softer. He smiled, not the charming smile he used for cameras, but the quiet one he used to give her when no one else was watching. "Hi," he said gently. She hesitated, then smiled back. "Hi." The director approached them, thrilled to see their chemistry spark instantly. "Let's start with a simple scene," he said. "Just the two of you walking and talking. Natural. Easy." But nothing about it felt easy. As they rehearsed, every look, every pause carried memories of a time that never really left. The air between them was charged, unspoken words heavy in every breath. That night, after the first day ended, Demet sat by her hotel window overlooking the sea. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared, but she knew exactly who it was. "It feels strange seeing you again," it read. "But maybe strange isn't bad." She smiled softly, replying with a simple line, "Maybe it's not." Neither of them realized it yet, but this was the beginning of something new, or perhaps the continuation of something that had never truly ended. The following week on set felt like walking through a dream neither of them wanted to wake from. Every scene brought them closer, and every unscripted moment blurred the line between fiction and reality a little more. They were professionals, they had promised themselves they would keep things under control, but the heart doesn't care about promises. The crew noticed it first. The way Can's eyes lingered a second too long when he looked at her. The way Demet's laughter came easier whenever he was nearby. "They don't have to act," one camera operator whispered. "They're just being themselves." The script called for a simple moment, a light-hearted conversation by the sea. But when the camera started rolling, something shifted. The dialogue faded, replaced by silence and raw emotion. Demet turned to him, her eyes reflecting the sunlight. "Why are you looking at me like that?" she asked softly, going off script. Ken hesitated, his voice breaking through the calm air. "Because I still remember everything," he said. "It wasn't in the script." Everyone on set froze. The director waited, unsure whether to stop or let it play out. Demet blinked rapidly, her breath catching. "Even after all this time?" she whispered. He nodded, his voice trembling slightly. "Some things don't fade." The silence that followed was deafening. The director finally called, "Cut," but no one moved. Both stood there, motionless, locked in a gaze heavy with years of love and regret. When the camera stopped, Demet turned away, pretending to fix her makeup, but everyone could see the tears in her eyes. Ken ran his hand through his hair, frustrated by the flood of emotions he couldn't hide. The director approached them slowly. "Whatever that was," he said, voice hushed, "don't lose it. That's magic." That night, Demet couldn't sleep. She kept replaying his words, "I still remember everything." She wanted to believe it was just acting, that he was caught up in the moment, but deep down she knew better. That tone in his voice, she had heard it before. Years ago, when he had told her he didn't want to say goodbye. Her phone buzzed at midnight. It was him. "Couldn't sleep either," the message said. "Want to talk?" She hesitated, fingers hovering above the screen. Then she typed back, "About what?" "About us." She froze. Her heart raced as she stared at the words. For years, they had both run from this conversation. And now, it was there, waiting for her. After a long minute, she replied, "Okay." A few minutes later, there was a knock on her hotel door. She opened it to find him standing there, no cameras, no crew, no makeup, just Can. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he said quietly, "I meant it. Everything I said today." She crossed her arms, trying to sound composed. "That was part of the scene, wasn't it?" He shook his head. "No. None of that was acting. It never was." The air between them grew thick with emotion. He took a step closer. "Do you ever think about us, Demet? About what we could have been if we hadn't let everything get in the way?" She looked down, her voice trembling. "Every day." And just like that, years of silence shattered. They talked for hours, about what went wrong, about the fame, the distance, the misunderstandings. He told her how he had tried to move on but never could. She admitted that she had built walls just to protect herself from the pain of missing him. By dawn, the city was quiet, and so were they. Ken looked at her one last time before leaving. "I don't know where this will go," he said softly, "but I know one thing, I don't want to pretend anymore." When he walked away, Demet stood at the door, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in years, her heart felt alive again, not healed, not whole, but beating for something real. And as the first rays of morning light broke through the sky, she whispered to herself, "Maybe this time, we'll get it right." The final week of filming arrived like a quiet storm. The air on set felt heavy, not from exhaustion, but from the unspoken truth hanging between them. Every scene felt like a memory, every line a confession. And deep down, both knew that when the camera stopped rolling for the last time, they would have to face what was real. The final scene was poetic, two lovers saying goodbye after years apart. But for Can and Demet, it wasn't just a scene. It was their story. The director gave instructions, but they barely heard him. As the camera rolled, Demet looked into Can's eyes and whispered the scripted line, "Maybe some stories aren't meant to end." Ken stepped closer, his voice low, trembling. "Or maybe some stories just take time to begin again." The words weren't in the script, everyone on set knew it. But no one stopped them. The emotion was too raw, too real. Demet blinked back tears, her hand reaching up to touch his face, her voice breaking as she replied, "Then don't let it end this time." "Cut," the director called, but his voice sounded distant. Can and Demet stood frozen, eyes locked, hearts racing. The entire crew stayed silent, watching a love story unfold that was no longer fiction. When the cameras went dark, Demet turned away quickly, wiping her tears. Ken followed her quietly out of the studio. She stopped near the exit, her back to him. "You said those words like you meant them," she whispered. He stepped closer, his voice soft. "Because I did." She turned slowly, her eyes glistening. "And what if it's too late?" He shook his head. "It's never too late to tell the truth." The world outside soon found out. Photos from the final day leaked, Can and Demet embracing, smiling through tears. Headlines filled the internet within hours, Demet and Can, the reunion that feels too real. Fans wrote thousands of comments, you can see it in their eyes. This isn't acting, it's love. But neither of them gave interviews. They didn't need to. The silence between them had always spoken louder than words. Later that night, they found themselves on the hotel rooftop, overlooking the sea. The sky was painted with stars, and the sound of the waves below reminded them of everything they once shared. Demet wrapped her arms around herself, the cool breeze brushing her face. Ken approached slowly. "Do you regret saying what you said in that interview?" he asked. She smiled faintly, looking at the horizon. "No. Because it led me here." He nodded, stepping beside her. "You know, I never answered it." She glanced at him. "Answered what?" "The question everyone keeps asking me, if I still love you." Her breath caught. For a long moment, the only sound was the sea. Then he looked at her, eyes full of everything he had ever left unsaid. Yes, Demet. I still do. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't look away. Instead, she whispered, then stop proving it to the world and just prove it to me. He smiled softly, reaching for her hand. I intend to. Under the stars, they stood together, not as co-stars, not as headlines, but as two souls who had finally stopped running from what was always meant to be. The chaos of fame, the noise of the world, all faded away, leaving only them. The next morning, an Italian magazine published a single photo, Can and Demet walking hand in hand through the narrow streets of Rome, smiling like two people who had finally found peace. The caption read simply, "Some stories never end, they just find their home." And as the world went wild once more, neither of them said a word. Because for the first time in years, they didn't need to explain anything. They had already confirmed everything, with silence, with truth, and with love that never really left. The end.